But anyway, let's move on from talking about the downfall of universities and education and begin to talk about the downfall of America. Now, of course, where else would you start with a video talking about the downfall of America but with the Biden administration? Jen... I don't know how you pronounce her last name. Now, of course, as we've discussed on the show, the government of New Zealand has been using COVID to strengthen its power, and I have a sneaking suspicion the Biden administration is doing the same thing. Just check this clip and you'll hopefully see why.
You went through kind of the top line details of this yesterday, but can you elaborate a little bit on the Facebook, the administration to Facebook, flagging of disinformation, and then there's also some reporting that we've had that Facebook maybe hasn't been as proactive as the White House would like it to be in response to some of the flagging. So the process of how the flagging works and then whether Facebook has been amenable to those requests.
Sure. Well, I would say first, it shouldn't come as any surprise that we're in regular touch with social media platforms, just like we're in regular touch with all of you and your media outlets about areas where we have concern, information that might be useful, information that may or may not be interesting to your viewers. You all make decisions just like the social media platforms make decisions, even though they're a private sector company and different, but just as an example. So we are regularly making sure social media platforms are aware of the latest narratives dangerous to public health that we and many other Americans are seeing across all of social and traditional media. And we work to engage with them to better understand the enforcement of social media platform policies. So let me give you an example just to illustrate it a little bit. The false narrative that remains active out there about COVID-19 vaccines causing infertility, something we've seen out there flowing on the internet quite a bit, in other places as well, which has been disproven time and time again. This is troubling, but a persistent narrative that we and many have seen, and we want to know that the social media platforms are taking steps to address it. That is inaccurate, false information. If you are a parent, you would look at that information, and that would naturally raise concerns, but it's inaccurate. And that is an example of the kind of information that we are flagging or raising.
And then has Facebook been as proactive as the White House would like in terms of its response to those flags?
Well, I think as I noted yesterday, Phil, there are more steps that everyone can take. And I would just note again, this is a responsibility of officials speaking, of course, on behalf of the government. It's a responsibility of members of the media. It's the responsibility of citizens and civic leaders and people who are trusted voices in communities around the country. That has a broad definition. Social media platforms is one of them. And as we know, it is also there are also areas where a lot of people get news and information. Sometimes those are accurate news items reported by some of your outlets or accurate information shared by a neighbor. Sometimes there is information that is not. It is hard to discriminate, as we know. This is not a new issue, but it is an issue that is impacting people's lives. So a couple of the steps that we have, that could be constructive for the public health of the country are providing for Facebook or other platforms to measure and publicly share the impact of misinformation on their platform and the audience it's reaching. Also with the public, with all of you, to create robust enforcement strategies that bridge their properties and provide transparency about rules. You shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others for providing misinformation out there. Taking faster action against harmful posts. As you all know, information travels quite quickly. If it's up there for days and days and days, when people see it, it's hard to put that back in a box. And of course, promoting quality information algorithms. I don't know how they work, but they all do know how they work. So those are some of the steps that we think could be constructive for public health, for public information, for public, and the right of the public to know. Go ahead.
Just to quickly follow up on the Facebook aspect of this, you said yesterday that 12 people were producing 65% of the misinformation on vaccines on social media platforms. Do you have a sense of who those people are? Are they bad actors like Russia? And Facebook responded yesterday after the press briefing. They say that they removed 18 million pieces of COVID misinformation. They've connected more than 2 billion people to reliable information. So does the White House find that sufficient?
Clearly not, because we're talking about additional steps that should be taken. And frankly, information that media organizations could decide whether you're going to report on or not. I'm not talking just about the misinformation storyline. I'm talking about these individuals. I'm talking about how prevalent the spreading of this information is. The public has a right to know. That's the point that we're making, and we're dealing with a life or death issue here, and so everybody has a role to play in making sure there's accurate information. Obviously, those are steps they have taken. They're a private sector company. They're going to make decisions about additional steps they can take. It's clear there are more that can be taken.
Now, I understand that we don't want people being misinformed about a virus, especially one as deadly as COVID. I understand the sort of hatred of misinformation, but censorship is going to be a bit of a problem with this if this stuff gets pushed in. Because then, well, who do you trust? Who is giving out the accurate information? No doubt, of course, it's the government. They are the ones that can't be trusted. So what happens when someone comes out with a story that the government doesn't talking about? Then that would be misinformation, of course. And if that's misinformation, then we've got to take it down, and because, I mean, if it was proper information, the government would be reporting on it. You see where I'm going with this, right? I mean, they're going to use it, they're going to bring it in using COVID as justification, and then they're going to keep it in because they're going to find something else. They're going to use this possibly, most likely, going to use this against climate change. Now, personally, in my opinion, I think it's better to just have no gatekeepers for and just let information flow and let people research and find out for themselves. I know this could lead to a lot of potential misinformation, but this also could lead to a lot of information that needs to be leaked, that the government wouldn't want you to be leaked. Like, I think the Watergate scandal would apply. I don't actually know what that is, but yeah, just a scandal that the government wouldn't want you to know about, and stuff the government wouldn't want you to know about. If we were to really accept this whole banning people for spreading misinformation, all the government would have to do is just say, that is misinformation, that is fake news, and boom, it's gone. And we're just meant to rely and hope that our government is trustworthy.